OpenAI launched a feature in September 2025 called Instant Checkout. The idea behind it was really simple. You could browse for a product inside ChatGPT and buy it right there without ever leaving the chat interface. The press loved it. The tech press just went nuts. Everybody on LinkedIn says, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. Analysts said that it would disrupt Google Shopping. Gartner forecasts that by 2028, 90% of B2B purchases will be handled by AI. Last week, OpenAI pulled the plug. They've got near zero sales from it. A dozen merchants integrated with it out of millions. OpenAI hadn't built the state sales tax infrastructure. And it turned out that users, consumers, customers are happy to research inside ChatGPT. They just don't want to buy there yet. In the travel space, Expedia and Booking Holdings stocks went up on the news. The OTAs, the online travel agents that were supposed to be disrupted by this, got a lifeline. I'm not going to tell you that agentic commerce isn't coming. It is. The direction here is clear. I want to talk about what you do when you genuinely cannot predict the timeline. Because we can't. OpenAI just proved that. And the right answer to that uncertainty isn't to freeze. It's also not to build your strategy around the next big press release. It's to do the things that make your business better today and also happen to prepare you for any version of the agentic future when it actually arrives. This is episode 487 of Digital Reset with Tim Peter. I'm Tim Peter. Let's dive in. Here's what happened. In September of 2025, OpenAI announced that they were going to make it possible for people to be able to book reservations right in ChatGPT. They said that people would be able to buy things from folks like Wayfair right in ChatGPT. They were working on a big integration with Shopify so that people could buy right within ChatGPT. And here we are, 6 months later. This is early March 2026, and they're pulling back from this. They've announced, we're not going to do this. And there are three reasons why this happened. And let's start with the most important one, and always the most important one, which is customer behavior. Customers were browsing, they weren't buying. People today use ChatGPT the way they use Google. They research and they narrow down their options, and then they complete their purchase somewhere that they trust. It's not an implementation issue that they're working through here. This is a behavioral reality. The second big reason is operational complexity. Payments require tax infrastructure. They require fraud prevention, refund handling, and consumer protection and compliance. OpenAI had built, well, none of it yet. For travel specifically, there's also all the liability issues, cancellations, disrupted trips, customer service complaints, etc. FocusWire called it too complex for quick fix distribution. These aren't bugs that OpenAI is going to patch right away. They're fundamental hard problems of commerce that Amazon and Expedia and Booking and lots of other folks have spent the last 30 years solving. In travel specifically, Amazon has attempted more than once to build a commerce platform, only to back off because, well, it's hard and it doesn't really align with what they do well. They've got free shipping, which doesn't matter in travel. They've got warehouses, which don't matter in travel, right? All of these things don't play to their strengths. And at the moment, they don't play to ChatGPT's. The third problem, the third reason, is about merchant adoption. At least according to some research, maybe a couple of dozen Shopify merchants actually integrated. That's out of millions of Shopify merchants. Real world e-commerce doesn't plug in the way that the developer demo suggests today. And I want to be really clear. I'm talking about today. I do not want you to listen to this podcast. I don't want you to listen to anything I'm saying here and think I'm saying that AI is overhyped or, this is never going to work. That is such an easy thing to say, and it's wrong. It is wrong. It is not a thing I'm saying. What's really happening, if I can borrow the classic podcast phrase, is that two things are true at the same time. What has happened here is that ChatGPT checkout failed in its first attempt. I mean, we've all been there, right? But things like Google's Universal Commerce Protocol and ChatGPT's Agentic Commerce Protocol are still moving forward. Etsy and Wayfair are already transacting within Google AI mode, and in some cases, in ChatGPT. Sabre, PayPal, and Mindtrip have an end-to-end agentic travel booking system that they anticipate is going to happen in Q2 of 2026. By the way, Q2 of 2026, I'm recording this on March 11th, that's, weeks from now. So the direction is real. A company that controls payments infrastructure, Google, with Google Pay and Google Wallet, can do things that a company that doesn't, OpenAI of February 2026, March 2026, can't do right now. Google's integration with Siri, and as a potential consequence of that, their potential integration with Apple Wallet, just underscores the opportunity that's available to Google right now and others who do the work to make that happen. The timeline is what's uncertain here, not the destination. It's pretty clear where we're headed. Last week, I talked about the fact that Klarna made a very similar misstep. There's a pattern we've seen before here. This is simply the Klarna moment for agentic commerce. You may recall in last week's podcast, I talked about the fact that Klarna replaced 700 customer service agents with AI in February of 2024. The press, again, was all over this, that, oh my gosh, this is the moment that AI is going to replace all the people. Well, fast forward to spring of 2025, and the CEO of Klarna said we went too far. The technology was real. The timeline for how long it took to deploy was wrong. The gap between the press release and the operational reality was enormous. I mean, that sounds familiar, right? You've seen this before. Agentic commerce is just following that same path. The tech press said it was here. People on LinkedIn went nuts. OpenAI launched the feature. The feature didn't work the way it was supposed to. And so it's time to recalibrate a bit. Again, the lesson isn't AI doesn't work. The lesson, as always, is build your strategy around principles that hold no matter which version of the technology wins. Lois McMaster-Bujold is a sci-fi author. She wrote a book years ago called The Vor Game. And the hero of the book, Miles Verkozigan, learns that, quote, the key of strategy is not to choose a path to victory, but to choose so that all paths lead to victory. The point is the same as what I'm talking about. You want to win no matter what happens, no matter which technology folks eventually adopt. Right now, executives across hospitality, retail, B2B are all being asked some version of, what is our agentic commerce strategy? Do we have one? That is a reasonable question. That's a really important question to think about and work on for your business. It's also impossible to answer today because the infrastructure, who controls the checkout moment, which protocol wins, whether it's Google's UCP, OpenAI's ACP, or something that has not yet been proposed, and finally, what your customers will actually do, simply is unsettled. We don't know yet. Here's the thing. The fact that you can't answer that question does not mean you can't act. It means that you need to act in a way that doesn't bet on any one specific answer. You have to bet so that all paths lead to victory. There's a useful concept in strategy. You've heard this before. It's called investing for optionality. You want to give yourself options. Instead of betting on one specific outcome, you make moves that pay off across a range of outcomes. The right agentic commerce strategy right now is an optionality strategy. Do the things that make your business better today and that also happen to put you in a position so that you do well no matter which version of agentic commerce actually arrives. So there are 4 things I think are valuable right now for GEO, for AI search, for traditional search, and for direct business, direct bookings in hospitality and travel that also will make you ready for agentic commerce when the infrastructure, shows up. If your content has schema markup, if you've got schema markup on your site, AI systems in recommendation mode right now and in purchase mode, sometime not too far down the road, can read about your system, about your inventory. They can read about your prices or your rates. They can understand your amenities and the benefits that you offer to customers. There's data that suggests that sites with proper schema markup are cited in AI responses 3 times more often than those that aren't. This isn't something that's speculating about the future. This is improving your GEO visibility this week. It also doesn't hurt your traditional search either. Remember, a few weeks ago, I talked about this idea of first do no harm. This is a perfect first do no harm action. Help yourself today and help yourself in the future. The second thing you want to do, and we've talked about this as well, is review velocity on trusted platforms. Review how often people are talking about you. AI systems give a lot of credit right now to review recency and review volume on sources they've been trained to trust, whether that's Google, whether it's TripAdvisor, whether it's Yelp, whether it's industry publications, whether it's social media. These aren't just agentic commerce signals, by the way. They're the same signals that drive business and AI search inclusion right now. Encouraging customers and guests to review you on the right platforms has always mattered. It now matters more than ever. It's also another reason why customer service is queen, now and always. The third thing you want to think about, and this one is more about hospitality, though it has applications in other spheres as well, other domains as well, and that is rate parity. Any tool, whether it's an AI agent, a search result, or human browsing, that finds a lower price on an OTA than on your direct channel, sends the customer to another hotel or to an OTA. This isn't a new problem. It's just something that has become a much bigger problem. If Google, for instance, doesn't see that rate parity, you're not going to show up in AI overviews and AI mode pretty much all the time. You're going to lose in meta search pretty much all the time. This is a prerequisite for any distribution strategy. Today, tomorrow, traditional or agentic, period. The fourth thing you want to do is build direct relationships with your customers and collect first-party data. You've heard me say that data is the crown jewels many, many, many times. This is probably the single deepest lesson from OpenAI's walkback. The checkout moment is still resolved when customers trust you. And trust flows through relationships that don't depend on a third-party intermediary. The hotels that have direct relationships with past guests, clean CRM data, and loyalty programs that aren't OTA dependent have options when the distribution landscape shifts. That's true, by the way, in retail. It's true with B2B. When customers buy directly from you, when customers have a direct relationship with you and trust you, they're more likely to come back to you again and again and again. The brand becomes the prompt. That's where you want to live. The businesses and brands that don't do this are at the mercy of whomever controls the next layer, right? And as we all know, they become gatekeepers, and gatekeepers gonna gate. Everything I've just talked about is the entire argument, the whole argument of digital reset. You cannot predict which gatekeeper will control the connection with your customer next. You can't. It could be Google, it could be Meta, it could be Amazon, it could be Perplexity, it could be ChatGPT, it could be Booking.com or Expedia, it could be AI agents. Each one has looked like the definitive answer at some point or other, or like they could be the definitive answer. Right now, we don't know which ones will. We don't. We can't. The companies that build direct relationships, that own their data, and invest in their hub, their owned channels, rather than their spokes, platform-mediated traffic, always have options when the landscape shifts. The ones that outsource their sales and marketing to somebody else don't. You don't need an agentic commerce strategy. You need a direct relationship with your customers strategy, one that makes you resilient to the next gatekeeper and the next channels that they support, regardless of when that happens or who that turns out to be. Fundamentally, that's how you ensure all roads lead to victory. Now, I'm going to give you a real-world example of this and how we've seen this happen in the past. Independent hoteliers have seen this story before. Early in the 2000s, the conventional wisdom was that OTAs were a great distribution channel. They gave you high visibility, no upfront cost, and you paid only on conversion. Properties leaned in, and a decade later found themselves in a situation where OTA commission rates had risen to 15 to 25%. Parity clauses had grown so onerous that they really lost control of their own distribution. And the properties that had built their entire distribution strategy around an Expedia or a Booking.com found that they had no leverage to negotiate and, frankly, not a lot of direct channel to fall back on. By the way, the same thing happened again with Google and Meta Search. The agentic commerce question is structurally the same thing. The question isn't, will AI agents book hotels? They will, in some form, sometimes today, and definitely eventually. The question is, when AI agents do book hotels, are they going to route through Google's UCP, Booking.com's agentic layer, Saber's system, or something that doesn't exist yet? Nobody knows. And that includes Google, and that includes OpenAI. But hotels that have built direct relationships with past guest data and loyalty programs and recognition programs and direct booking engines with real-time rates and availability and a great guest experience, they have a seat at any of those tables. A hotel that is dependent on OTAs or on intermediaries for 35, 40%, 50% of their revenue, they're waiting to find out which intermediary is going to control the world as they go forward. Muse called 2026 a make or break year for hotel transformation. But if you look at what they said, they didn't talk about get your agentic booking infrastructure ready. Instead, they talked about, hey, get your systems, your data, and your teams AI ready before conversational search and before AI agents and assistants move from experiments to everyday guest expectations. They're telling you how to prepare. That's what we're talking about too, right? So there are 3 moves you can take right now that you absolutely should be doing. The first is run the agent test today. I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. What is AI saying about you? Go to ChatGPT, go to Google, Gemini, go to Perplexity. Ask each one to recommend a business like yours or a property like yours in your market. Are you in the results? Do you even appear? We've talked about prompt brand equity. Do you show up? Retail, B2B, hospitality, you all face the same question. Importantly, this is today's question, not next week's or next month's or next year's. This matters right now. What those AI assistants and agents surface in their recommendation reality today is what any future agentic booking system or commerce system is going to start from. If you don't appear, you're not even in the game. 2, audit your schema. Use Google's free rich results test, which I'll link to in the show notes, and check whether your business gets it right. Do your inventory or your rates or your prices or your amenities or your room types, are they all correctly exposed via schema? This is free. It takes you maybe 15 minutes, and it will improve your current AI search visibility, whether or not agentic bookings arrive today, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year. 3rd, always treat your direct channel as the asset that it is. Rate parity, good, clean, very responsive booking engine, and a reason to book direct, a reason why guests should choose you, why customers should choose you, are prerequisites for any go-to-market strategy, including agentic ones. If you don't have this fixed today, no amount of schema markup is going to matter when the agent does the price comparison. The honest answer to what's your agentic commerce strategy is we're building a foundation that works regardless of how the technology unfolds. Because the last company that announced a definitive answer changed course. They reversed themselves 6 months later. That is not ducking the question. That is the strategically correct answer. It's the answer that your digital reset is built around. Build direct relationships, own your data, create great customer experiences, and make your brand the prompt. Not because you're predicting the future correctly, but because those investments pay off in every version of the future, including the ones that nobody predicted yet. If you want the full framework for how we think about this and how you can think about this, not just agentic commerce, but the whole gatekeeper problem that keeps shifting, I wrote Digital Reset specifically for you. The king, the queen, the crown jewels framework, the hub and spoke model, your brand is the prompt, all of it's in there, all of it developed in full. The link is in the show notes. Thank you so much for tuning in once again. I genuinely appreciate you being here. As you know, this show would not happen without you. You can find the show notes for this episode at timpeter.com/podcasts. And if you know somebody who you think this episode would help, please share it with them. I'd genuinely appreciate it if you would do that. I hope you have a spectacular rest of your week and a spectacular week ahead. Until the next time we talk, please be well, be safe, and be excellent to each other. I'll see you soon.